Hello there. Welcome back to Sex in the City. No, welcome back to Virgins. welcome back to Virgins in the Village, a Sex in the City watch-along podcast with two registered virgins.
My name is Alex Pittner, and I'm here for the sex.
And my name's Hayden Hartrick, and you know what? I think this week I'm here for the city.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. This week we are discussing Season 1, Episode 7, The Monogamist. Alex, why don't you tell me what this... Oh,
I forgot what you do every time.
yeah, I
Please do.
Alex, why don't you tell me what this episode's about?
Alrighty, so this episode, of course, is written and directed by the creator, Darren Star.
Woo!
In this episode, it begins with Carrie being really happy because she is with Mr. Big.
Yay.
However, she and the girls catch Mr. Big on a date with another woman,
Oh my gosh.
sparking the episode's theme, monogamy.
Woo!
Meanwhile, Charlotte has a new boyfriend who pressures her both emotionally and physically to give him a blowjob.
Boo!
Amen. Charlotte doesn't like giving blowjobs, and she is uncomfortable doing so. This leads to the girls having a conversation over dinner about oral sex. Sorry. It has said Terry in my summary, and I was like, who the fuck is Terry? Carrie gets a drink with Stanford, and they meet some guy who's supposed to be hot but isn't, named Jared. Later, Carrie gets dinner with Miranda, and they run into Skipper, who has a new girlfriend. After dinner, Miranda calls Skipper to have sex. Unfortunately, this call occurs while Skipper is having sex with his girlfriend. So naturally, Skipper dumps his girlfriend in the middle of sex to go have sex with Miranda. Post the Miranda-Skipper sex, Skipper gets over Miranda because he doesn't want to be a booty call anymore. Mr. Big takes Carrie to a party, and it turns out that he's dating...
Excuse me.
Turns out that Mr. Big is dating everybody in the fucking Upper West Side. That makes Carrie upset, so Carrie leaves the party. Carrie goes to a different party and then calls Mr. Big and threatens to fuck Jared. Later, Mr. Big and Carrie meet up in the front of the park and decide to be monogamists together. Meanwhile, Charlotte's boyfriend Michael once again tries to pressure her into making her give him a blowjob. Charlotte expresses that she is uncomfortable doing it, but the guy insists because he's a piece of shit. They end up breaking up over this. Also, Samantha is fucking real estate agents, and it doesn't matter.
I was going to do sound effects throughout the whole summary, but I just got so engrossed with you talking that I forgot to do them.
I really like the little side effects, though.
I'll try to do it in more episodes. You just were enchanting me with your wordsmith.
Thank you. Hayden, I want to know, did you like this episode? How do you feel with this episode?
I like this episode.
Me too.
I thought it was very funny.
Me too.
The sex count for this episode is 3, technically. Mm-hmm. Because, so, there's a weird thing with making this sex count where the definition of sex kind of has to be chosen in the moment. Because I don't count just, like, makeouts.
Yeah.
It has to, like, obviously be showing, like, at least the first parts of sex. So there is...
Okay.
Or the post-coital conversation is where I count as a sex count.
Okay.
I
like it.
Because there is Skipper with his girlfriend.
Bing.
Skipper post-coitus with Miranda.
Bing.
And the real estate agent I think once he fully removes the top part of Samantha's dress and her tits are out, I think that is where I counted a sex count.
Mm-hmm. So that's fair.
Yeah.
I like it. I like that we're keeping with the sex count.
But yes, so I like this episode.
Me too. I thought it was really good.
Maybe from I thought it had a lot of good moments.
Me too.
I thought the pacing was done very well.
Me too.
And that it had a lot of really funny lines.
Me too. I think I laughed out loud, like a real belly laugh. I think twice during this episode. So before we continue on, in the theme of ongoing lists that we keep like sex count, Charlotte's boyfriend, Michael Conway, has officially entered Alex Pittner's death penalty list.
Woo!
And will die in the episode that we write.
Woo! By the way, I don't think we've expressly talked about it on the podcast, but we do plan to write an episode at the end of this season.
Yes.
Okay. I got really nervous that I was about to make a promise that we both weren't on the same page about. But yes, at the one of the plans of this podcast, at the end of every season, there will be an episode where Alex and I have written an episode together, and we will get a bunch of our friends, some guests that you may have seen on the podcast before, some guests you may have not seen on the podcast before, to do a read-through of the episode.
Indeed.
Like a radio play.
Yes, exactly like a radio play. Yeah, so one of the things that Michael does, and it's something that makes me, like, actually so angry and uncomfortable when I see it in media, is because he wants her to give him a blowjob, he, like, puts his hand on top of her head and tries to, like, force her head down. And it, like, that shit is, like...
uncomfortable.
It is my... like, I guess Hulk. Like, that shit makes me so mad.
I did notice you got green and got really big and started talking like Mark Ruffalo in the middle of the episode. Yeah,
I did start breaking shit in your apartment, which I am sorry about, but you can understand.
I understand, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so...
No, go ahead. If we're still... on the topic of Carrie's boyfriend, the just most egregious man... I'm also about 80% sure that he's a bestiality-or. I don't know what the term for somebody who commits bestiality is. But after he says the most perfect line...
Yeah, do you just want to jump to that scene?
Yeah, I want to talk... We'll talk about these in arcs of what each character does. So... You know, obviously, the second time when he's trying to force Carrie to give him oral sex, and she's obviously not comfortable, Charlotte, to give oral sex. Thank you, Alex. And she's obviously not comfortable with it. She, is like, I don't want to give you oral sex. And he's like, well, I expect to get a lot of blowjobs in the future, and I want you there when I get them.
Yeah. I went down and wrote this. So first off, this guy... I wrote down that Michael is my least favorite type of person. And then also, what happens is they're talking, and he's like, I've never met someone who's, like, so beautiful and smart and cool as you, blah, 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 like, all this, like, romantic shit. And then he kisses her once, and after that first kiss, he's like, blowjob time, and he, like, goes for it, which is like, dude, I hate you. But yeah, when Charlotte's like, I don't feel comfortable doing that, he goes... Can't you just do it for me?
No.
And so Charlotte's like, do you really want me to do something that I am not comfortable doing? And his response...
You'll get used to it.
You'll get used to it because he's the devil. And then, as you said...
They have a conversation where Charlotte is like, look, are you really going to give up are you really going to give up me, a person who really cares about you, over a blowjob? And he's like, you're right. And he grabs her arms, and you're thinking, like, oh, he's, listening to reason. And then he says a golden line.
Will you at least lick my balls?
So Charlotte leaves the apartment.
Of course.
Which she should do.
Of course.
Which is when we come back to the suspected bestiality.
Yes.
Because the camera, in the scenes that they had been leading up to sex, right? There was obviously there was the guy's dog that was always just sitting and watching them have sex.
Yeah.
Which they didn't comment on in the episode. That felt like something they should have commented on in the episode.
I was sure that they were going to make a joke.
Yeah, I thought that's what the joke was setting up for. Mm-hmm. When it was like, oh, he just has one problem. His dog watches us have sex.
I thought that's where that was going too.
But, so the dog is watching, and then Charlotte leaves, and the guy is looking, and the camera, like, he looks at his dog, and it pans over to the dog smiling, which, if that's not an implication of he's about to fucking reach over and pull out a jar of peanut butter, I don't know what is.
Yeah, the way he looks at the dog, like... truly made it seem like they were going for a joke where this guy, he's gonna fuck his dog.
He's so desperate for a blowjob that he's going to fuck his dog.
It was very weird. I just hate that guy.
Yeah.
Michael is the piece of shit, and Michael will
He's
die.
not the worst piece of shit we've had on this show.
He's up there.
He's up there, though. He also didn't, secretly record women having sex.
Yeah, that's true.
But he did try to just force Charlotte to do something she wasn't comfortable with.
He also...
Which they comment on.
Yeah.
I think they made a very good point about oral sex in this episode.
Yeah.
Right? In the all the girls having dinner scene.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I drank a Topo Chico before this, and it's in my lungs right now. And I taste the In-N-Out burger in my mouth.
We have to cut that second thing. That is such a... We have to.
I'm not cutting it.
Okay.
You get to know this. It's the behind the scenes. No.
Fucking Snyder cut, if you will.
But they're talking about it, and she's like, Charlotte's like, I don't want to give head. And one of the girls, I don't remember which one, says like, what do you expect? Like, how do you expect him to give head if you're not going to give head? And she's like, I don't expect to get head. And I thought that was I think that's a very nice point about just like, not specifically oral sex, but like expectations of other people.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not going to do something for somebody else, then like there's no expectation for them to do it for you, which is like, especially in like the oral sex region, I assume it's like, it's a two-way street, which it did not seem like Michael was the type to reciprocate that.
Yeah, I think Michael's the type of guy who like deserves to like start like choking while he's alone in his apartment. And he's like choking, and he's like trying to get his phone to like call someone to help him, and like he can't reach it, and he falls to the floor, and he starts banging on the wall of his neighbor, like tapping out like an SOS, like help me, and his dog is like running around. The dog is like freaking out because he's clearly dying. And then we cut to the neighbor in the other room who hears him calling for help, but the neighbor knows, and they just don't do anything because it's better for him to be dead.
That got really dark.
Sorry, I was...
I looked at the audio track, and it got like...
It got so low.
Like, the audio track just looks like a line right now.
Yeah, like a flat line. Like, his heartbeat is like... He's like, starts thinking about like whether or not he's gonna, go to hell, and then he realizes that like his sins are like, they're so...
So there's other things that happen in this episode.
There are!
If we're done talking about oral sex, man, and I just wanted to bring it up just because I feel like the whole point about like, reciprocation just in general life is like not expecting other people to do to you which you won't do to them. It's just a nice point. I like that. The opening of this, right, with Carrie talking about Mr. Big, right?
Yeah.
And them going together. They just start making out on the streets of New York, and that's the worst kind of people.
Wow. Really?
I hate people like that.
I don't care.
It's just, don't do it. Like, I don't care if you're fucking like making out, but they were in the middle of the street. They were in the middle of the sidewalk. It's like the people in high school that would just like walk in like 4 to 4 in the walls, and you can't get past them.
You know what, Hayden? You just changed my mind about it. That analogy to a high school hallway.
Yeah.
I hate them now. Yeah, not for the PDA, but for standing still in the middle of a bustling area.
Uh-huh.
I'm with you now.
Yeah.
I'm with you, bro.
So just stop.
Bro.
Don't kiss in the middle of a sidewalk.
Just on the bustling sidewalk. I don't care if you kiss on the sidewalk.
Just keep moving. Keep walking while you're kissing.
yeah. Close your eyes. Maybe keep one open and just keep moving.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Put one hand out in front of you so you can like push people that are in front of you.
Move along.
Keep the other hand out to hit the little cross the street button.
Yeah, actually, Aiden, that reminds me. I don't know if you remember this because this was a while back, but you actually did something like this where you and your girlfriend at the time were like kissing and like walking through the streets of San Marcos, and you had me dress up like in like a costume and be like, "Move along, everybody! Nothing to see here! Nothing to see here!"
You made good money that day.
I did make a lot of money that day. You paid me upwards of 40 grand for an hour of my time.
And unfortunately, my girlfriend did break up with me immediately because of that.
Yeah, as soon as your lips touched and I said, "Nothing," she went, "Mm-mm, I don't think so," and she left.
But I did, like, I had already paid you for the hour, so I made sure to get my use out of it.
You paid me in full a year's salary, and you've never asked for it back, which is, like, so generous of you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not... When I commission an artist, I'm not going to take away the money just because, you know, I fucked up.
Yeah, that reminds me, actually, Vogue did an article about me. They said that I was the Picasso of going, "Nothing to see here, move along."
And the white tuxedo I got you, too, was, like, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I put that on when I go to bed.
Do we want to talk about the golden line of this episode? Because we talked about the silver line.
I would love to talk about the golden line of this episode. To set it up, it's an episode about monogamy because, as I said earlier, Carrie catches Mr. Big on a date. And we cut to the interstitial. Mm-hmm. And there is a guy who...
Did we get a people on the street moment last episode?
Did we?
I don't think we did.
Okay, I guess not.
But I like the people on the street.
I do like that.
And they're talking about monogamy, you know, they're being like, "Oh, monogamy? Yeah, I'm monogamous. Wait, what have you heard?" They're just people talking about their definition of monogamy. And the first guy they choose to throw on that screen
is a guy, he's pushing like a barrel of water.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say the line?
I would love to say the line.
Okay, if you want it verbatim, it's right there.
He says, he's walking, and he says, I've been in a monogamous relationship for a year now, and it's been deeply fulfilling. And he, starts to round a corner, and he says, of course, my definition of monogamy includes sex with prostitutes.
Which is just...
Darren Star, that is the best line ever written for television.
I have to say, Darren Star, I thought going into this purely based on the amount of episodes he wrote that Michael Patrick King would be my golden boy in terms of writing. But so far, Darren Star.
I don't know. I'm excited to see some of these other writers get in there.
Me too.
Me and Alex.
Exactly. Which, speaking of... Yeah, I'll do a little, learn what the Mangekyo Sharingan is before our episode. I'm only 100% serious.
I don't know what that is.
Oh boy. Hayden, you're in for a trip when you read my outline.
I'm ready for it.
So also, something I didn't love about this episode is that, to me, they seemingly tried to switch the roles of Mr. Big and Carrie in terms of that. In this episode, it seemed like Mr. Big was having lines where he was trying to duck on Carrie. Failing to do so, in my opinion.
How do you mean?
I mean, like, because usually, like, Carrie's the one, like, hitting him with, like, the zingers, like, abso-fucking-lutely, and, like, I'm good with puzzles, not people puzzles, But I feel like in this one, Mr. Big was having more and more lines. I feel like I'm not gonna be able to scan through my notes fast enough because I don't know
while you look, I'll talk for a second. I feel like this episode did not get me invested in their relationship dynamic, right? Because I felt like both of them were just, like, making dumb choices, right?
Yeah.
Like, Carrie was expecting him to be monogamous without ever asking for monogamy, and then judging him because he wasn't being monogamous, even though she never specifically asked him to be monogamous, which I think is an unfair thing to do. Regardless of how you feel about somebody, if if you haven't specifically asked them for something, you cannot judge them for same thing. Like Mr. Big shouldn't judge Carrie for wanting to be monogamous if he didn't tell her that he wanted to keep things open.
I am Team Carrie this episode. I think Mr. Big was a douchebag this episode, and I think it's because in the last, I think it's the last episode, maybe 2 episodes, episodes ago. No, it's last episode. At the end of the episode, Carrie and Mr. Big are talking about their relationship, and Carrie has the whole thing where she's like talking to him, and she's like, "You won't introduce me to him. You won't do this. You won't do that." And they're talking like about relationship, and at the end, Mr. Big's like, "Do you want to do this thing?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And they agreed to, quote, "do this thing." And I assumed that was about their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, at least to me, I feel like it's clear that you don't... I think Mr. Big is in the wrong this episode 100%. And I also think that, at the very least, if Mr. Big is going to date someone else, he should tell Carrie. Like, I don't think that should have been a situation where Carrie figures out that they're not monogamous by catching him on another date.
Which is exactly what I'm saying. Is both of them should have communicated with each other. That's what I'm saying. Is like, I feel like, because if you say, "Oh, do we want to do this thing?" "Yeah, let's do this thing," and then that's the end of the conversation. There is no party, like, you've not both agreed on a definition of what this thing is. Because in Mr. Big's eyes, it could... I'm not saying that Mr. Big was not in the wrong, because I do believe he acted like a dick for a lot of this episode.
I think Mr. Big was a shithead.
Doing a lot of things that was like, "Look, dude, obviously Carrie is upset. Maybe you should ask her what's wrong, instead of just, going like, 'Can we not do this here?'"
Yeah.
But again, I'm saying that, like, I think without a clear discussion of being, without a clear question of like, so this thing means we're going to be monogamous, right? Which Carrie never even in this episode, even at the end, there was not like, I liked the little end of like, "I just want to stand still with somebody." But that still was like when you're in a relationship, like, it's got to be communicated, like, in clear terms, right?
Yeah, I guess in my head, and maybe this is an old-fashioned way of looking at things, in my head, the relationship, the default is monogamy. And again, maybe that's an old-fashioned way of looking at things.
It's your I mean, to like put it that's how you view it, right?
I think that's just like how I was raised to view it. That's what
Mm-hmm.
like when someone says that they're in a relationship, that's like what my mind jumps to is a monogamous relationship. And I think, in the 90s too, I mean, that's even less. I feel like relationship is more likely to be defaultly defined as a monogamous relationship, especially in like the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. In my head, I felt like going into this episode, especially with the last episode being about not being ashamed of who you're with in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like Carrie and Mr. Big, seemingly that they had that DTR that you're talking about. Yeah, I just felt like Mr. Big was such a callous asshole this whole episode. Especially when Carrie's like, "How many people are you dating?" And his response, this was one of the quote-unquote dunks, is him being like, "You mean just in the Upper West Side? Or just in the tri-state area?"
Mm-hmm.
I was like, go fuck yourself, dude.
Go fuck yourself, Doofenshmirtz.
Yeah. I felt like, I don't know, I felt like Carrie has, like, clearly, at the very least from my point of view, demonstrated that she's into Mr. Big, and in a sense, like, willing to, I guess, fight for that relationship, and I just feel like Mr. Big is not giving back.
I don't think Carrie and Mr. Big should be together.
I don't either. I don't think Mr. Big should be with anybody. I just hate Mr. Big. Yeah.
But I don't know. I still think that, like, there's some aspect of I'm still Team Carrie. Like, this is not what I'm saying is not Team Carrie. I'm just saying that I think It's because it's a television show, TV show. There are so many times where it's just like, okay, but literally, if you just said what you were thinking, like if you just came to him and said, "Hey, I want to be monogamous. What about you?"
Yeah.
That would, all the conflict would be gone. And I think because
That's true.
if you're not willing to have that conversation and say it in express terms, then like why you can't be mad if you didn't explicitly say, I want to be monogamous. If you're trying to like be shady about it, I hate that.
I think you're allowed to be mad in that situation.
Okay, sure. Maybe allowed to be mad is not the right word, but what I'm saying is like I don't think if you're not willing to, I just don't like people that don't like when they're feeling certain feelings towards people, don't expressly say what they're feeling. I know it can be hard sometimes, but it immediately removes all conflict. And if Carrie can't, if a person just in general, Carrie, Mr. Big, whoever, can't say what they want out of a relationship expressly, they shouldn't expect the other person to immediately be on their same page.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a fair general rule of life, is not expecting people to be on the same page as you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. I'm still Team Carrie, because I think Mr. Big was a dick in this episode, and the
awful.
whole situation was handled poorly. But I want to talk about Skipper.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about Skipper. So, Miranda and Carrie are at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And Skipper walks by arm in arm with a lady.
With a lady.
Who works at Vogue.
Yeah, he's doing good for himself.
Yeah.
She's beautiful, obviously into him.
Yeah, I thought Miranda, Cynthia Nixon was on in that scene.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's like, who?
Uh-huh.
What? Like she's like so shocked to see Skipper with anybody, which so was I.
Yeah.
And so later, I assume you want to talk about it, cuts to Skipper having sex with his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're having sex, the phone rings.
Bring, bring, bring. Bring, bring, bring. Of course, because they're having sex, they ignore the phone ringing.
But the voicemail
But
turns
the voicemail
on.
goes. And it's Miranda.
Hey, Skipper, it's Miranda. How are you doing?
And they're over here like...
And Miranda's like, hey, Skipper, it's Miranda. I miss you. And then Skipper picks up the phone mid-coitus.
Uh-huh. And he's like, hey, I can't really talk right now. And then Miranda's like, oh, you want to get dinner? And he's like, okay, I can't really talk right now. And he hangs up the phone. And then he looks at the woman who his penis is inside.
Yes.
And says, this isn't going to work out.
And she goes, let me get this straight. You're breaking up with me while you're still inside of me?
I love that line. I love that line.
That line made me so sad. That was another thing where, like, Skipper is a fuckboy.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy fuckboy. I don't like Skipper.
Like, that made me... That scene, didn't like Skipper.
Yeah.
The scene after that, though... Because I think, obviously...
Skipper got his arc, just not the one that you were expecting.
Yeah, because Miranda, they have sex, and Miranda and Skipper are talking, and he goes on to tell her that when she called, he immediately broke up with the girl that he was... as they were having sex.
Which is like...
Don't say that, first of all.
I feel like Skipper doing that is so out of line and not okay at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But... So they talk, and then she's like, I'm not ready for because she's like, you don't have to do that. And he's like, yeah, I do, because I, like, really care about you. And she's like, oh, I don't really... I'm not ready for a whole relationship thing. To which Skipper gets up and is like, oh, I'm done then. Like, I don't want to be just a fuck call.
He starts putting on his clothes.
And which I really liked. I thought that was like...
Well, I think the part that made it nice was he's upset and he's getting out of here, and Miranda sees that he's getting upset, and she, like, smiles, and she's like, come here. Like, round 2 for sex. And Skipper's like, no. And he, like, keeps putting his clothes on. Which I felt like that was, as much as I do not like Skipper, that was a big moment for Skipper because, I mean, again, his big trait throughout the series of, that we've seen of him is that he is obsessed with Miranda and so deeply in love with Miranda. And Miranda's like, come over here. And he's like, no.
Which, and I think when he was, because in his eyes, he was wronged by Miranda. Like, I think from regardless of what Miranda was thinking, like, obviously she knew what she was, like, she knew that she was calling him while he was in a relationship to try to get sex out of him.
Yes. Because
she was jealous, and I don't think that was okay.
Yeah, I feel like...
Okay.
I agree. I think that because, she did seem... she did seem to call him wanting sex, being like, I miss you, while she knew Skipper was in a relationship. So, I do think that was messed up. I think it's like equally messed up for Skipper to drop his girl that fast, let alone during sex. I think they're just kind of both in the wrong. With that said,
but I
did think that was a big moment for Skipper.
I was proud of Skipper just as a character, regardless of how I feel for him in the past, about being able to understand that he was just hurt by this person, and regardless of how he feels about this person, put his own, like, health before those feelings, because sometimes that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
When you have feelings for somebody, it's really hard to move past them and let yourself continue to, like, grow as a person.
Yeah.
And I think him, like, making that solid decision. I wrote here, I really hope Skipper doesn't come back. I know he's going to, because I think he has slotted for, like, 2 more episodes.
Damn it.
But I was saying, I really hope he doesn't come back, because I think that is a good final thing for him to be like, I'm done with you. Like, you manipulated me. Manipulated kind of, to come have sex with you because you knew, like, calling me... Like, there had to be some knowledge that I had these feelings for you. And then I feel shut down, so I'm done. I'm out of this situation, which is good for Skipper.
I agree. I don't want Skipper to come back because as much as I really hate Skipper, I really think Skipper's a piece of shit. I will say that moment did kind of impact me. Not impact me, but it was one that just, like, I didn't expect, and again, as much as I hate him, I kind of liked for his character, and I do hope it's the last we see of him, because, like, I mean, I'm not, like, a writer. That is, like, an arc, right? For him to go from being totally obsessed with Miranda to, like, moving on, having a girlfriend, to, like, going back to being, like,
back into it. Then the final decision of, like, realizing what he did was wrong.
Yeah, and I think that moment would not have been super impactful for me without, like, I truly love the writing of her being, like, smiling and being like, come on, like, come to bed, and him being like, and that didn't even faze him.
Yeah.
I was like, Skipper's grown. Shit. Yeah. You know, I thought that was a very, again, as much as I hate him, I thought that was an interesting moment and a great place to, like, I guess, take the character.
So if we see him in future episodes, I hope it is him fully moved on.
Yeah.
Just kind of existing in New York, showing that, like, he's grown as a person.
I agree. Mr. Big at the party, while he is arm in arm with Carrie, like, his arm is around her waist, he kisses another girl on the lips. I thought that was pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
That seemed maybe uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Oh, Carrie...
That was Max's party. Our guest from last week was in the episode.
There's a line that I thought was really awesome, and I thought that SJP nailed it. It's at the beginning of the episode when they catch Mr. Big on a date with someone else. And Carrie, like, goes to Mr. Big, and she's like, hey. And Carrie's like, she's stunning. And I should know, because, frankly... She stunned me. I thought it was really funny.
It was a very nice line.
Yeah.
Do we even want to talk about Samantha in this episode?
Yeah, I mean, I like your suggestion at the beginning of talking through it character by character, like what they're doing. Samantha has sex with real estate agents. It doesn't matter.
It's it's like it's like a technical like a business monogamy relationship, because it starts with the woman being like, don't work with other real estate agents, but then she goes to another real estate agent because he's hot and he has sex with her.
They have sex, yeah.
Then they have sex, and then they have sex, and then she gets caught by the first real estate agent, and then they have sex.
Yeah. It's kind of like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got anything else to talk about from this episode?
I feel like we probably hit everything. Oh,
do we want to talk about Jared?
I was about to say.
Yeah, because I just looked at my notes and it said the 30 guy came on very strong.
Yeah, I hated Jared. Jared is the second person in this show who looks like a Muppet to me. He looks like a unibrow Muppet trying to be the Fonz.
Yeah.
Like there's a part in this episode where Carrie is like, "Can you get me a drink?" He's like, "Yeah." She's like, "A cosmopolitan," and he gives the weirdest thumbs up. It's like he bean dips himself into the thumbs up. It was so weird, and it's like a bad thumbs up too.
Yeah.
Ugh, it was so gross, and he's wearing sunglasses at night. It was just so gross. I hate Jared.
Yeah, I hated him too. From the moment he started talking, to every line he said, he just came on super strong, and I was just like, you're gross. Like,
yeah, he has a line that made me so uncomfortable where he's like, "I just love pumping my ideas into the world." I was like, oh,
I don't want you to pump anything.
Exactly.
Ever.
Ugh. My last note is just back to Mr. Big. I feel like a lot of Mr. Big's lines are like to make Carrie, to be mean to Carrie. Like the whole thing where he's like, "No, the front of the park is at the street." She's like, "Well, it depends on where you're coming. Do you see the doors? It's the front of the park."
I actually kind of liked that moment.
You liked? I hated that moment.
I liked it from a writing perspective.
Oh yeah?
Because I thought it was a really fun back and forth, where it's like you kind of got. It was both of Carrie and Mr. Big are both very headstrong characters.
You know what? That's true.
Like it just exemplified that a little bit, where they were both like, "No, this is the front. No, this is the front," and they just kind of went. I also thought it was a fun back and forth, regardless of like, yeah, Big was kind of being mean to Carrie. I thought it was a fun back and forth.
You know what? I'll give it to you. You've changed my mind on that opinion. I think that does reinforce the characters, that they're both headstrong.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe, and I guess the writing is not necessarily trying to get us to root for this relationship, right? Like, I'm not rooting for this relationship.
I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like we're supposed to be rooting for this relationship because it's what Carrie wants.
Oh, it is what Carrie wants. But yeah.
I don't know.
Weird. It's weird.
I don't know. It's weird.
I liked the final line of this episode.
Where he said, "I'm gonna fuck this dog."
Yeah, where he unzipped his pants and put a big old spoonful of peanut butter on his dick and said, yeah. Anyway, but I liked it. She was like, "In a city of infinite options, it's nice to know that sometimes you have just one." And I was like, okay, I kind of liked that line. Also,
technically, New York is not a city of infinite options, because there's a limited number of people who live in New York.
Which brings me to my Virgin segment. Hayden, actually, technically, you could clown Zack Snyder for everything in the film except for the black Superman suit, because that's a direct reference to the death of Superman. When he comes back to life, he wears a black suit.
Actually, see, from an artistic perspective, I don't care. Sometimes I don't care if it's a reference to a comic book. Sometimes I just don't like a costume. I don't care if it's a reference to Death of Superman. Sometimes I just sometimes I just don't like it. Alright? I'm allowed to not like things.
Yeah,
even
and
if
that's
they're
okay.
comic book references.
Yeah, and that's fair.
We gonna make out?
I think. We kiss once and Hayden starts pushing my head.
We kiss once and I hand you a white tuxedo and say, "Start telling people to move along."
Move along. Nothing to see.
Yeah, Alex was very high about how he forgot to clown me for not knowing it was a Death of Superman reference.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not trying to clown you because you didn't know. I think it's just like, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I hated the movie, Snyder Cut. I hated it and I thought it was awful. But it's one of those things where it's like, the criticisms, I want to like give the reverse of Games doing a visual gag where his lips are perfectly in a coat hanger. It's like like credit where credit is due. I want criticism where criticism is due. Like I think that Snyder, but I can't look at you like this. I think that Snyder made a lot of mistakes, and I think that the Snyder Cut is a real piece of shit film. But I don't think that the saying like he only gave. Oh no. Every time I look back at him, he's doing something. I am
so sorry. I am alienating our viewers right now.
No, I've done it before too. It's making me laugh. I love it. But it's one of those things where it's like I just don't want people to criticize it being like the black Superman suit is stupid because Snyder's just trying to be so edgy that he gives him a black suit. But it's like no, he was just trying to be faithful to the comics for once in his fucking life. Which I mean, I think that your stance of being like, yeah, I still don't like it is totally fair. Mm-hmm. Totally cool. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't want people to think... It's weird that I'll come to bat for this. I don't want people to think that Snyder made the suit black just because he was trying to be edgy. Mm-hmm. Although that probably is why it appealed to him.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like there are moments that obviously, like, it was in that moment where it didn't feel like a comic book reference. It felt like an edgy black suit.
Okay.
I know it could have been... It is a comic book reference. But just from how everything else in the film, we're not talking. We're about to. Last week we discussed Snyder Cut for 30 minutes. We can't do that again.
Can I say
just one thing I wanted to talk about that I didn't get to talk about last week was I loved the Flash in Snyder Cut. I thought it was a very good Flash, and I thought this, spoiler alert, this final Speed Force scene, even though I kind of thought it did a bad bit of showing Flash at like max power in his first appearance. I thought it was still a really nice, beautiful scene, regardless of if Ezra Miller kind of runs like a Muppet being thrown off a building.
I'm gonna do two Snyder Cut things. One quickly to get us on the same page about the Superman thing. I think at the end, when it does the classic like he's in Clark Kent mode and then pulls open his shirt and you see the Superman symbol. I think the fact that he was still wearing the black suit right there is ridiculous. Because I believe he only wears the black suit in Death of Superman like immediately after he's come back to life and he has to like solve business. So I hate that he was still wearing the black suit then. And then I liked all the Cyborg stuff so much. And I think I said that last week, but I want to reinforce it. I think it kind of borderline goes to prove that Joss Whedon is a little, if not a lot, racist. Because I don't know if you've read about that drama between the guy who plays Cyborg.
Yeah, Ray Fisher really didn't like, which I think it's understandable because Ray Fisher, he's a huge, I believe that's the actor's name. Mm-hmm. He's a huge factor and basically a part of like a decent chunk of Snyder Cut is Cyborg's arc.
Yeah.
Regardless of how I think like other characters, like how I think like in the world and in the script it could have been handled better. I think Ray Fisher did a great job with what he had.
Yeah, and last thing to say about the Snyder Cut, because we can't keep talking. We should do a Snyder Cut episode extravaganza.
We should.
But to Alex, I've always been of the opinion of like, why is Cyborg on the Justice League? I just feel like he fits better in the Teen Titans. And as much as I hate the Snyder Cut, I thought the Cyborg stuff was fantastic. The Cyborg stuff, to me, was my favorite part of the movie. The first hour of the movie is my favorite part, probably because that's when we get the Cyborg story, and that was the first time that I was really sold on Cyborg being in the Justice League. And again, I loved so much what they did with Cyborg in the Snyder Cut. That's like the one thing I like about the movie. And so I think the fact that Joss Whedon took that out is kind of revealing, at least to me. So Team Ray Fisher all the way.
Ray Fisher, you should come on our podcast. Come talk about Sex in the City with us.
Yeah, and because Ray Fisher, I know that you're like technically like logged into everything on the internet at once due to your superpowers. So I'd like really appreciate if you would like come.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Tweet at us. But let's talk about other Virgin segment. This is the real Virgin segment.
Real Virgin segment.
We had no emails this week.
Nope.
I checked before our pod episode, so there were no emails this week. Again, if you would like to email us, we'll talk about it in between our main segment and our Virgin segment. It is virginsandthevillage@gmail.com. And so just email us with any questions and we'll answer them right now. We didn't get any new emails right then.
No
I
emails
was
right there.
so sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk about Virgin segments. I'll go first. Little thing I've kind of like started watching on YouTube again recently is I've started watching a lot of like speedrunning stuff.
Okay.
I really like listening to people talk about the ins and outs of speedrunning. Right? Yep. Like the really technical aspects. Like I was watching a video yesterday about a tool assisted speedrun of Mario 64 where they would like get his speed up so much that he would be going into parallel universes, which they described as like basically he was going so far so fast that he was going into another map that was the same map, and so they were calculating his moves via like parallel universes.
What? Fuck?
Yeah, no, it was so weird. It's a nice thing to fall asleep to too, because it's very relaxing to hear people just talk about like game mechanics and like the really like intense physics of games.
Yeah.
To a point where like I would love to get into speedrunning. I don't think I'm proficient enough, nor do I have the time and patience it takes to get good at speedrunning a game. But I do want to be one of those people that goes and finds unknown games and speedruns and just collect as many world records as I can for games that nobody plays.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever see myself as a speedrunner because I'm a very like, when it comes to media, I'm a very like on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just kind of, my life just exists in like phases of like what I'm into like this week type deal. So I don't think I could ever like stick with one game hard enough to like get good at speedrunning. But I do like, I like watching speedruns of like Mega Man X and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like speedruns of like Dark Souls or something don't like interest me as much as like old games. But I would honestly love for you to send me that video if it's like unintentional ASMR, because like I love
it's
that
nice
shit.
It's real. I'll find it in my history. I'll send it to you. It's also like watching like people do like blindfolded speedruns of like Punch Out.
What?
Yeah, you've never seen those?
No.
Another one of the videos I watched last night was explaining the history of the blindfolded Punch-Out speedrun and how it basically went from a guy just who knew really well like how to, like a traditional like guy who was really good at Punch-Out who just put on a blindfold, to people actually developing full strategies and like learning patterns and doing these things that are like buffer strategies where you would like delay inputs and you had to listen to audio cues. And it's just, it's mind-boggling to see people, like, to just see people go from basically going, like, oh, there's no way we can, like, it went from, like, in the course of, like, 3 years, from getting only to, like 5 fights in, to doing the entire game in one run, blindfolded. And Punch-Out is a hard game.
Yeah. That is incredible.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all for my Virgin segment. I just rediscovered my love of listening to people talk about speedruns.
I like that video where Ben Schwartz is sitting with the guy doing the Sonic speedrun. Just because I like Ben Schwartz.
Oh, I haven't seen that video.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I like Ben Schwartz too.
I like Ben
Middleditch and Schwartz, if you haven't watched it, you gotta watch it.
Gotta peep that. I am, I know I just said that my life is very on to the next thing, but I'm still on my Yu-Gi-Oh bullshit.
Of course.
And I've been watching Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
Whoa. That's the one where they go to space, right?
I think they go to space.
I don't know. I was trying to be like Yu-Gi-Oh! Go to space, but space is not spelled with an X. And I couldn't think of a pun in time. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Go to xylophone really wouldn't work.
Love it. And so far, it's really good. But I have some beef that I want to bring to the show.
This is the one that you sent me the image of best friends aren't best friends until they've showered together, right?
Yeah, until they've gotten naked and rubbed each other's backs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which we've been doing this entire podcast. This entire episode we've been naked rubbing each other's backs.
The hardest thing about this podcast was when I was...
It's Alex's dick, am I right?
Hey! Hayden high-fived himself. He didn't. I was there for it. But yeah, like the hardest part about this podcast was when I was trying to describe that visual gag you were doing, and I couldn't because you were behind me rubbing my back.
Mm-hmm. Which is also weird because you were also behind me rubbing my back.
Which is actually a gag that happens in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Are you sure it wasn't a live bear? and not me.
Are you bullshitting me?
Yeah, that happens is they're all rubbing each other's backs naked in the hot spring, and then they go, and it's like a train, and they go, and switch, and they all turn around, and then Judai is scratching a bear's back, and then they're like, ah!
Do they duel the bear?
No, but they get into some crazy duels. They duel a monkey. They duel a really smart monkey.
Monkey?
Yeah, a monkey who has been experimented.
Was it the monkey from Friends?
Yes, it was Marcel. It was Marcel. He got transported to a experiment where a facility where they experiment on animals on the underground of the island in a secret facility, and it escapes with a dual disc and it kidnaps a girl. They have to duel the monkey to get the girl back.
Monkeys can't read cards. Monkeys can't read Yu-Gi-Oh cards. That breaks my immersion.
You're gonna hate GX because there's like vampires and shit for some reason.
Vampires can duel.
That's true.
Vampires can read.
That's true.
Monkeys can't.
I don't think so. He had like a RoboCop mask, like he was experimented on. So
That was me.
that was you?
Yeah, I went into animation and I became an animated monkey with a RoboCop mask. I kidnapped a girl and I did a dual disc.
You have to tell me how to get to Duel Academy.
I can't.
Fuck.
I made a pact.
It's like the only thing that like I care about. Like doing this podcast is like really fun and I like it and like I like hanging out with friends.
But if you got the opportunity to go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Academy, you're gone. I would never see you again.
It's not even like the bar is that low. It's just like Alex, if you do want to play Duel Links, if I could just play the Duel Links app, like it's kind of the only.
You just wouldn't do this podcast.
Yeah, I wouldn't do anything.
All right.
That's borderline true, unfortunately.
I know. I've seen your obsession with Duel Links. We
It's
talked
like-
about how if either of us gets the stimulus check, Alex is going to use all of the money in Duel Links.
It's like
Hey, turn off your goddamn phone.
I put it on Do Not Disturb and airplane mode. I don't know why that happened. For the record, I am starting to get nervous about the Duel Links. And I don't know how sad we want to get on the podcast.
I think we should save that for another time because we're about 50 minutes in, and I think that should bring us about to the end of our episode.
Okay, give me one second. My problem with GX that I wanted to bring to the table was I think that GX has a lot of cool characters and cool decks, but I'm 40 episodes in, and the only person other than Judai that we've got to see, other than the main character that we've got to see duel, basically 99% of the duels are Judai. We've seen other people duel like in 4 episodes out of the 40. Which I think is ridiculous, especially compared to the original series where it'll be like Yugi Joey, Kaiba, Joey. It'll like switch around.
Kaiba who?
Kaiba, Joey.
You didn't say Joey.
Did I?
You said Jewy.
Oh, I meant to say Joey.
Mm-hmm. I was like, that'd be it. I really hope Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't make a character called Jewy. That just would be very bad.
No.
But I think that just about wraps us up for this episode, unless there's anything else you want to talk about. Alex is doing a visual gag where he's taking a Topo Chico bottle and he's making it look like it's his penis.
No.
So that's where I'm sitting and watching. He's putting it in his pants right now. I'll take a video of it.
You don't have the balls.
Well,
also, I'm not.
I mean, I hope you would lick them. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, our Twitter is @VirginsVillage. If you want to, please give us a review or a like or a really freaking whatever on whatever you're watching us on. It helps more than you could imagine. If you want us to keep doing this podcast and stuff, just let us know. We're appreciated. And Alex is putting up like pregnancy legs. Are you trying to fart at the microphone?
Oh, it was silent.
But yeah, so email us virginsofthevillage@gmail.com. And follow us on Twitter. I think we're on most podcasting apps now. I think we at least got on Apple Podcasts. I don't know. Our podcast distribution is weird.
If you give us 5 stars on Apple, we'll read it on the podcast. Give us 5 stars and roast us in the comments, so we'll read it on the podcast.
Yeah. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll try. We'll read some reviews probably. All right.
Love you.
Until next week. Keep having sex. Keep having city. Alex is now making his little diddle on the end of his pants make it look like he's masturbating with 2 fingers. So I'm gonna leave you with that for the rest of the week.
I don't think so.
I'll see you next week.
Bye.